Welcome to Around the Shop with 360 Woodworking. Your hosts are Chuck Bender and Glen Huey. Each Saturday, tune in for the best in woodworking tips, techniques, and general shop fun. Now, here's the 360 guys, Chuck and Glen.
Hey, we're going to start off with a question again, and this question comes in from Doug, who's a member of 360 Woodworking, and it's a little different from our normal questions because a lot of the questions come in about past things we talked about. Doug is actually leading us into today's topic.
Excellent.
So his question is, can you tell us about your favorite furniture pieces and the pieces that you'd enjoyed making throughout your history of woodworking?
Sure, we could do that. In fact, we will.
Absolutely. And yeah.
Doug, got a coffee mug coming.
Yeehaw. All right, so let's talk about it. And what I'd like to do is kind of lead through, when I talk about my woodworking, I always talk about it in phases. You know, I started out one area, I progressed in different areas, so I want to kind of
So it's all been phase one.
And we starting it off early. There we go. Okay, so when I started off, I was a big fan of shaker furniture, and I think a lot of people that started in woodworking are huge fans of shaker.
Sure.
I like the straight lines. I still today like it. But back then, one of the first pieces that I built was a water valet cupboard, and I really liked the cupboard. When I built it originally, I copied it from an ad that I seen in Main Antiques Digest and thought it was a fantastic piece, and the more I looked at it, the more I thought there was something wrong with it. And this is one of those areas where I always talk about, as a woodworker, you need to build things that please you. And I built this based on the original. It was very close to the original, but I didn't like the crown molding that went around the top of the piece. So I went and I did a little bit more research into water valet community projects, and I found a crown molding was a two-step molding that I liked so much better.
Nice.
And I changed that molding on those cupboards as I built them from that point on. And to me, it made all the difference in the world.
See, this goes back to a conversation I had with Tommy Mack. You know, we were up there filming a couple of episodes and stuff and talking with him, and I just said something about, you know, just because it's old doesn't mean it needs to reproduce. He said, could you tell my wife that?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point because, you know, just as there is today, there's a lot of projects being built today that nobody's going to copy 200 years from now. Sure. And there was an awful lot of projects back there that don't need to be copied today. So that's a great point. So I changed the molding on the piece, and built it probably another 5 or 6 times. And the one that I built that I really enjoyed was out of flame birch.
Oh, cool.
And a lot of people know that as curly birch. And that's a wood that I think you got to play around with a little bit. It's not really meant for small pieces. It really has to be bigger pieces.
Yeah, because the curl in it's a lot like cherry. It's got really broad, not uniform or not symmetrical kind of curl. It's not like tiger maple where it's very uniform. Right. You know, it's light curl, dark curl, light curl. This stuff is much more random in its effect. Yeah. And I always found that customers either walked in and they were passionately in love with curly birch, or they were just as passionate about how they hated it.
Yeah, no, and that's it. That's a lot of it. They call it curly birch. It's also known as flame birch, and the reason it's called flame birch is because the grain looks like a candle flame as it's moving around. So, so that was my first piece that I built. That it's like I just love doing it. Now, probably had as much to do with my newness into woodworking and building for customers and all that stuff as opposed to the project or the piece itself. But I still today like it. I still, you know, have one. So.
Well, and that's the going back to the changing of the crown molding and stuff. I mean, it's really good for people to understand that just because you're copying something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you saw in a magazine like Glen saw or anything like that. I mean, if you're a member of 360 and you grab the plans for one of the projects, make it your own.
Oh, yeah.
Jump in there, do a little bit of tweaking and stuff like that to make the thing very personal, especially if you're going to give it away as a gift. Why not?
Yep, absolutely. And I think you can throw in along those same lines. I've never built a piece that I would go back and build the exact same way for the next time. I'd always find something that I want to tweak.
Oh, sure.
So make it your own. Do what you want to do with it.
Sure.
All right.
For me, that's a good question. I would think that, again, going back to phase one of the career, probably the thing that I enjoyed making the most were wing chairs or easy chairs.
Really?
It was, and started doing them when I was at Irian, and the first couple I did were straight or tapered legs with a H stretcher on there. The great thing about it is it's a place where you can learn a lot about angled joinery, and you don't have to worry about it because it all gets covered with upholstery. You know, as long as the joints are tight and things are in place, then it really doesn't matter a whole lot. The ones that I liked the best were the Queen Anne and Chippendale ones from Philadelphia that had the curving fronts and the C-scroll arms and stuff like that. I mean, they were just a ton of fun to build, and you know, the only thing you see at the end is the shape hidden behind the upholstery and the 4 little legs sticking out, and that's, to me, was just a ton of fun.
Yeah. All right, so move us up in the career a little bit, you know, something else.
One of the pieces that I've had the absolute most fun building in the last 20 years would be, I had copied a spice box that it's the only one known that looks like a little miniature Philadelphia highboy with the cartouche and the flame finials and stuff. And it's a pretty knocked out piece to begin with. And I had a customer who came in a few years ago who said, I want to buy something special for my wife, and we really like this, but there's just not enough carving on it. And I looked at it, I was like, you know, the whole frieze is all this. It's got this big shell and all this raffle leaf and stuff, acanthus leaf on the knees and flame finials with the carved cartouche in the center.
Just not quite enough.
Yeah, not enough carving. So we went back in and pulled an apron off of a highboy that was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and we sort of distilled it down from, you know, I mean, highboy, the front apron's, you know, 40 inches long, and we pulled this thing down into, you know,
10, 12,
well,
13.
a little more than that, you know, about 18 inches or so. And, you know, had to simplify the elements a little bit, but it ended up having all this, you know, this big floral thing in the middle and all this raffle leaf that went out across the bottom of the apron. And it was just, it was a ton of fun to make. I put in a bunch of secret compartments, and the guy would come by every now and then to see what was going on. And he stopped in the shop one day, and I had the main couple of secret compartments set in there, and the piece wasn't anywhere near finished. And I looked at it, and he showed up, and I was just like in a panic because I didn't want him to see where the secret compartments were. And he came in and looked at it, and he said, "Whatever you do, don't tell my wife." So we delivered the piece, set it up in the house, and he said, and you know, honey, got a real special surprise for you here. Chuck has some secret compartments in there, but nobody's going to tell you where they are. And she spent the next 2 weeks looking until she figured out where they were. So that was just...
Is that anything close to putting them in a round room and telling them to sit in the corner? Oh, wow.
So that to me, those are the pieces that are a lot of fun, where you make that connection with the customer. And sure, the piece itself was challenging and just a lot of fun to go through the process of making it. And it was great having, much like your crown molding story, you know, you can turn around and switch it up and make it something unique. That was also, it was a good challenge for the process. And that, to me, I guess, is the thing that makes a good project, is when I can look at it and I can say there's a challenge. If there's no challenge to it, I get bored pretty quick.
And that's the whole thing.
So how about you?
Well, if I'm
later phase.
If I'm moving forward, a lot of people will remember that I started in the business with my dad. And I think one of the favorite pieces that I would talk about in that vein is a piece you can see looking over Chuck's shoulder, and that's the tool cabinet that we did for the magazine. And what was fun about that, of course, was working with Dad on it and deciding what we were going to do and all that. But the fun part was he built the base in his shop, and I built the top in my shop. And we set them together the night before the photo shoot, because we have that just-in-time inventory system. And I learned it from my dad. It wasn't just me that come up with that. And we set them together, and everything went together perfectly on it. And then we put the finish and things on it and came in. And the next day during the photo shoot, one of the editors came in, and the first thing he did was pull open all the drawers because he knew we were behind in getting it done, and he thought he'd catch us not getting it done, but we had got it completely finished. So, you know, those kind of things. And that's why I tell people, you know, if you're working in this and you're woodworking and you're having fun, bring your son, your grandson, your granddaughter, your daughter into it, and make some memories, because it really is important to do. And I would go there and tell that story like 100 times and still have fun on it. So.
Excellent.
So we got time. Let's go ahead and talk about where we would go from here. You know, I mean, we've both been at this for a long time. I've been at it for 20 plus years. You've been at it for 30, 35 years. We've built a lot of projects over the times we've done it. There has to be a project that you haven't done that you want to do.
Oh, just one?
Well,
wow.
Just pick one. Yeah, because, I mean, we might do this 4 or 5 more times. But right now we're going to pick just the one. Just the one that stands out.
As far as a period piece goes, which is primarily where my career is focused, I think I would like to do one of the Cadwallader saddle seat chairs. It's got the double figure 8 back splat and the crest rail. Everything is all carved, and it's got cabriole legs and
what everybody know this
hairy
piece
paw
as.
feet.
Ah, there you go. You finally got to it. And when you say that name, that it stands out to me as that's the main feature. So tell us about that.
It's got hairy paw feet and acanthus on the legs, and it all goes up, and the seat is dished out to follow the curve of your bottom, and you know it's
so it's more round for me then.
No, thanks.
Stop that conversation in midair.
And it's over upholstered, but it only comes down about halfway down the rail, and the upholstery follows the cutout on the bottom of the rail, and there's carving between the edge of the upholstery and the edge of the rail. It's a pretty knocked out chair. The Metropolitan Museum has one or two. The Philadelphia Art Museum's got one.
But the
Kaufman Collection has two.
This was a series of pieces that were that direct or that way, that had the hairy paw feet and stuff.
Well, John
Cadwallader.
Cadwallader was probably the wealthiest man in the colonies around the time of the Revolution. He owned something called Northern Maryland.
Ah, yeah, small little place.
Yeah,
right on the East Coast.
Yeah, right.
Gotcha.
And all of his furniture was made at the peak, the height of what was being created in this country. So he's got the hairy paw feet, which look like lion's paws. They're all broken into toes, and then lots of fur carved on there. He's got French scroll feet on some of his stuff. They did bon cloth feet as well, but it's all got acanthus leaf and raffle leaf, and it's just some of the highest style stuff that was ever made in this country. So that's my piece. Is I'd like to do one of the saddle seat chairs, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go also with a period piece, and this is a piece I found probably 7, 8, 9 years back, and it's known as the Cabot Payne piece. And again, period. I still have the picture of it on my computer, and it's been on every computer that I've owned since then. And it's what I probably would have to say, in my opinion, is the most exquisite piece of period furniture that is a Bombe Secretary. And what makes it exquisite, obviously, is the character, what's there and everything. But the way that the artist or the cabinet maker picked the grain of the wood and the panels on the doors and the lid and everything about this piece just is the most beautiful figured. And the color is just rich and deep. There's a little bit of carving, but not over the top. There's some really nice, attributes of that period. There's great finials on it, and it's one of those pieces that's on my list.
Yep.
And I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to build it because I just not sure I'm going to have the time. It's one of those pieces that I think that I would spend 1.5 years on or something and really try to get it down to perfect.
1.5 years is not a problem. I have a Philadelphia highboy that I started copying from the Boston Museum of Fine Art, And I started that when I was working in Erie, and I just haven't really, had.
Well, that's my concern.
Well, you start.
You got this other thing that's involved, and it's called life.
Yeah, you
just can't get in and do everything you want.
Yep.
So I don't know. Pretty fun.
Yeah.
So, anything else stand out?
Nope, I don't think there's anything I can add. So, we'll see you next week.
Join the 360 guys next week and every Saturday for more woodworking talk from around the shop.